Welcome, everybody, to our very first Women's Voices glimpse, the first of a series ahead of our big Women's Voices gathering on the 8th of November this year. And I'm joined today by Jill Ruddock, who is the president for Soroptimist International, Tunbridge Wells chapter. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you. Hello, Laura. Yeah. Hello.
And we, actually only earlier this week, there was a Girl Guiding survey that showed attitudes of young women. And that, I mean, it sort of sets the scene quite nicely because it gives them stark statistics. 7 out of 10 girls have already, this is not they are going to, they have already changed their behavior in order to feel safe. And so, imagine being 14 and already planning your route home, based around fear. I mean, that's really quite frightening. And that's why these conversations are so important. But I mean, and to be fair, they echo the sentiment that I had fed back by our local communities when I did the walks and talks with Kent Police not so long ago. But, that's why we're here tonight, really, isn't it, Jill? Asking why women's voices and why now?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it is, and the survey that you talked about, it actually gives a very concrete example of exactly why we need to highlight the fact about empowering women, because someone who sort of came to maturity in the 60s, I find that, here in 2025, women feel less safe than in fact they did back in 1960. And so what has gone wrong somehow? And it is the narrative that we need to change. And I think we need to change it in two ways. One, about empowering women to make sure that women feel feel worthy of respect, feel that they have value, feel that they should not be buffeted around by other forces, that they are a force in themselves. And the other way in which the narrative needs to change is around ownership of the problem, ownership of the issue, around gender equality, misogyny, sexism. It's a society problem. It's not a problem that women alone can own or should own. It's a society problem because 50% of the population are the ones that the other 50% are nervous of. And so we need to engage and change the narrative around the people who demonstrate less than egalitarian behaviors. It isn't, obviously, I must say this, it isn't all men, no, by no means, but it is sufficient number of them so that women are still in a position where they don't feel safe.
And I think that is the key thing. I have this line that I say often: safety is a feeling. It's not just a rule of law, it is a feeling. And I think it's by having those open dialogues with everybody that we are able to change that narrative, because there's no point in people sitting effectively in silos to have that conversation, because we can't learn, we can't, seek that understanding, because we don't know what we don't know. And
the feeling doesn't come from nowhere. A feeling comes from somewhere. So a feeling is a result of something, a result of a particular mindset. And as you say, therefore, it's a very complicated thing to actually address. And so the event that we're having, it's a milestone event in many ways. I mean, we are assembling through a partnership of women's organisation. We are assembling a very wide spectrum of women in the town, but it can't be one time event that's going to change everything. It's the beginning of a process. And so it is, but it is creating that understanding and empowering the women and giving them the tools to have that dialogue of equals with the people who can effect change.
And I think you hit it on the nail on the head there. It's, you know, it's really, this is a starting point. This is about the tools, as you say, because, you know, I mean, we talked at length about, you know, it's great to have a safety charter, but a safety charter has to live and breathe in the realities of the community, of the lives of the women and the men within that community. And so that, therefore, it has to be very real and very practical, and through people's lived experiences, because, of course, not everybody experiences a situation in the same way. You know, and, you know, I've had a conversation, it was with one of the guys that I do a regular live with, and he'd been having this entire conversation with his wife around, you know, well, why won't she run at 6 a.m. in the morning? Because there's lots of cars around, she should feel safe. And, you know, he himself recognized that that was him looking through his own lens, feeling he felt safe, but actually she didn't feel safe. But until he had that conversation, it hadn't changed things around. And I think that is so important, why we have to have these conversations.
Yeah, and I think as well is because we've taken great pains to ensure that we have a very broad demographic in the room, both in terms, you know, diversity, so, you know, ethnicity, etc. Is that we do get that richness of perspective, because you know, my perspective is different from your own. It's going to be different from a 20-year-old, clearly, and so you know, and I don't, you know, I might go out at night, but I don't feel threatened because I am where I am and I am who I am. But you know, there are a lot of different people. There will be different people in the room, and I feel sure that by the end of it, we will have a much broader understanding of that feeling and the causes of that feeling, and so that then perhaps we can set in motion the change that really needs to happen. And I think the other strands of the wider initiative, and particularly the one with men as allies, I think that really is going to bring the whole community together in the realization that if we do work together, then we can change things. I mean, societal change is possible. It's happened, you know, I mean, you know, 50 years ago, homophobia was rife. It was even illegal. Now, you know, it is, you know, homosexuality is perfectly mainstream, perfectly rightly. So all of that societal change is possible. And we have to believe it is, and I firmly believe we can kickstart it, really.
And I absolutely am with you, Jill. You know, I have the absolute belief that, you know, this is a starting point, and I do believe the answers will come from the community. You know, I love the phrase, the answer to everything is all of us, and we're stronger together. I mean, you know, I say it often, and I think it's very, very true. Just to your point around, you know, the Men as Allies and some of the other projects that we've been sort of starting, the QR code that's in the bottom corner of the screen, you can learn more about some of the other projects that we have kickstarted locally in order to bring together the community and the voices, in order for this sort of shared responsibility that you share. And it's absolutely that piece of that it's a shared load. No one can carry this load alone. And so I think this gathering for us is very much about us reclaiming agency, amplifying voices, and sort of connecting that action in order to be able to create momentum beyond the room, really. So, you know,
yes, I mean,
sorry,
that's
Jill.
very important. That it's very important that we are, you know, as you say, creating momentum, you know, beyond the room. and we will be asking people to think, think deeply about how they are going to act differently, what they're going to take away from the day, what they're going to then do differently, and how they're going to behave. So it is important for everybody to see it as a process, that they haven't just come along, for a few hours of interesting conversation. They are part of a change, and they can be an active part.
And I think that's the key thing for me. And I think that's probably I mean, maybe I'm putting words into your mouth, but I would say that that's probably the one big thing that we, collectively want people to go away with. This is a starting point, and you are part of something much bigger that you can take away to really action and move forward. I think, the Girl Guiding survey couldn't be better timed in many respects, because it demonstrates the cost of silence to me, and why these spaces are so crucial if we want to bring about change within the communities with which we reside. So I'm very, very much looking forward to this event. You and I will be co-hosting it. Hopefully we've got all of the bits sorted, but the day is looking absolutely fabulous, and with some real food for thought, I think. So very much looking forward to it and having people to join us. So thank you everybody for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, thanks, Laura. See you soon.
Bye, Jill.
Bye.